All right, so I'm here this afternoon with Phil Thorne, and I've known him for a long time. We both just through wrestling, coaching wrestling, and he's a guy who, when I met him, did not have a kid in the sport, but was there, had a real passion for it, even though we were with another club in the summertime and stuff like that. I was bringing my boys when they were 9, 10, little guys over to him to coach. So here's a guy who has no horse in the race, but was coaching pretty much all year for that stuff. Phil, talk about your wrestling career as a wrestler yourself. When did you start?
Started wrestling when I was 8, I believe. We lived in Georgia. They didn't have wrestling, and my uncles weren't there. So when I got back here, I was a hyperactive kid. My uncles pushed wrestling, got into it.
So the uncles were wrestlers?
My uncles were wrestlers
Okay.
at Tinley Park High School, Arbor Park Middle School. Once I got into it, I didn't know anything. I was pretty successful right out the gate.
Sure.
But I had 3 other cousins right around my age that wrestled as well, so it was easy to just get in the flow of things.
Sure.
I wrestled for the Oak Forest Warriors growing up. My uncles were the coach. Ken Gertis was one of my coaches. Huge influence in how I think. He was
Sure.
like a tough-minded, in-your-face, kind of brutally honest guy. I tend to be the same.
Yeah.
And then after that, I went to Marion Catholic High School. My senior year, I went to Homewood Flossmoor. I qualified for the state tournament in high school twice. Never placed. Took a couple years off, actually. I kind of got burnt out because I had so many chips into being a state champ or state medalist as a junior or senior. In my junior year, I take 4th in sectionals. At the time, I don't try to put too much in rankings, but at the time, I'm ranked like 4th in the state. I take 4th in the sectional tournament. All 3 guys that come out of the sectional tournament are in the semifinals of the state tournament.
Right.
So senior year coming back, I qualified for Fargo. Had a great experience in Fargo. I think I won 5 matches. I lost 2 matches. I didn't place in Fargo, but I was ready to go senior year. I felt, okay,
Sure.
here, this is my time. So, yeah, we could get into talking about that too, but like senior year, you get older, you start thinking about things, and I cut too much weight.
Okay.
I wish there was somebody there to say, hey, Phil, dial back and let's just go up a weight class. You don't need to be cutting this weight class.
So you're fine.
I had tunnel vision. I wanted to wrestle Tony Davis. I wrestled Tony Davis so many times growing up.
Okay.
Never beat him once. Didn't beat him my senior year either. He was a tough cat. But you're motivated, and you set goals, and you try to go out and accomplish your goals. And it didn't work out. I qualified for the state tournament. I ended up losing my first match. Then I took a couple years off, went to Harper. It was a great experience. Dan Loprino was the head coach there still. He was a great guy. He kind of got me on a straight and narrow after some tough times in my life, I would say.
Okay, good.
In and out of trouble all the time, and then I just decided, hey, man, it's time to get back into wrestling, and I'm glad I did. Wrestled only 1 year at Harper, and just realized, hey, man, I took too many years off. It was hard to get back in. I was glad I did it.
Yeah.
Qualified for the national tournament, won a couple matches at the national tournament. But once it was over, I was like, okay, hey, I'm done. Came home, started working, and my high school coach at Marion, Don McKillop, asked me if I wanted to help out, and went in and started helping out, and just immediate passion for coaching and helping kids. So that grew. I coached there for 7 years, 8 years. I want to say 7 years. And then I became a journeyman in my career, and coaching high school just wasn't a thing going to work anymore, at least with the schedule that I was on. So got involved in coaching kids, bounced around a little bit. Probably a lot of people will say that is a definite downfall of mine. It was never anything personal or egotistical. It was more or less, I just don't deal with certain things. Parents,
Sure.
not being even keeled in their head and
Right.
trying to stay focused on the big picture.
No,
Or
they're definitely. I mean, there's definitely.
then you get
situations
involved
with
in big
parents.
clubs, and then
Yeah.
there's politics involved in big clubs.
Absolutely.
So after a little bit of that, I started my own club, and we did fairly well. A lot of good success, a lot of state qualifiers, state finalists, state champs.
Now, where was
state
that at? Was that
As at
Mantino?
Marion Catholic.
Oh, Marion Catholic,
Yeah,
okay,
Junior
right.
Spartans. And eventually we switched it to Spartan Elite, and people will say, "Oh, it's the Elite."
Right.
It was more or less that I was trying to get the high school kids to buy into off season.
Sure.
And that junior on there was like, "Oh, well, we don't want to be a part of the Junior Spartan." So it was like, "Okay, hey, we'll just call it Spartan Elite." And then
Right.
our off season numbers grew like almost immediately after we did that. So
Yeah, I know a couple coaches that don't like that elite thing.
yeah. I look back at it and I go, "Yeah, that's kind of cheesy
Right,
and
right.
cliche per se." Right.
Sure.
After that, got back with Stagg High School, which was awesome. I was super blessed to be there. I wish I would lived closer. I would still coach there.
Yeah,
It
it's
was
a distance,
just too
right.
far from Mantino to there. And then now my little guy start. He's been around the wrestling since he's been in a car seat.
Yeah, right.
So.
And how old is he now?
He's 6.
6,
So
right.
he's starting to go. So I started coaching with him and his buddies this year. First year with the Warriors, and a lot of good dudes involved there. So it's been great. And
Yeah,
now we're
right.
doing
That's
off-season.
when my boys started when they were 6, and it was not a. We talked about it before they started. Like I've seen you with your little guy just through social media, and it seems like you kind of eased him into it. You didn't want to get too forceful with it, but we wrestled and stuff like that, and then it was just okay. This is what we're gonna do. We go do it, and the second year came along, and I didn't. And they always won more than they lost. They were always doing well with it, but it wasn't like a thing where I, being a 30-year-old man, was going to ask, or 36-year-old man, ask my 6-year-old sons, well, what do you think? Because I'm 36, you're 6, so I know what's best for you, and this is what we're going to do. And if any parent out there takes their kid and puts them in wrestling, I suggest that you make it a 2-year commitment, because after that 2 years is when you start to see some. And I think, and I don't know what you think, and I'll ask, that we start them too early. It should be 9-10, because if everybody just started it, I mean, you could maybe have like how football has flag football, something that they could get involved with doing it, but not competing and stuff like that. Because now that we start them at 4, it is very difficult if you take a 9 or 10-year-old there to start them, because that 9 or 10-year-old generally goes in there and gets his butt kicked by a kid that was started when he was 4 or 5 years old. So he's got 4 or 5 years of experience, and it is. I can't think of a sport that is better for a kid's confidence, like what a kid can identify as. Wrestling is the only sport that I know of that's not. It's not a hobby. It's not something you can do. If you're a wrestler, it's all the time. You are a wrestler because you got to worry about your diet. It's never over. So during the season, we call it a grind, because it is. It is just a thing that's no matter what's going on, it's constantly on their mind. As far as I can't eat that, I got to make weight, Thursday. So as a kid goes, I can't think, and I don't care what the skill level is. We had kids that were autistic, that were slow, that were the most timid, unathletic kids in the world, and I always said it made them a better version of them. They're going to be who they are going to be. You get parents that come in, they want to bring their kid in there because they were bullied as a kid, and they figure, well, this is fighting, so my kid won't be bullied. Now, that's true. If your kid wrestles, I would say your kid probably won't be bullied, and it's not because he can fight. It's because he walks around with a different sense of confidence than if he wasn't. If he was a mousy kid and everything else. But, I mean, I walked in the garage. My two are arguing constantly. It's just, you almost can't walk. Like, we walked into the gym just now, and they're lifting weights, and I was surprised that they weren't arguing about something. But So I came to the garage, and they're supposed to be cleaning the garage, and they're just arguing. And I'm like, what are we arguing about now? And they're like, we're arguing about who the toughest kid in school is. And they're like in 6th or 7th grade. And I'm like, all right, who's the toughest kid in school? And Peyton looks at me and goes, well, it's either me or him. And I'm like, oh, my ass. You're in 7th grade. There's some big kid there. So that was the mentality that they were walking around with, which that's exactly the mentality you need to step on the mat. You need to believe that you can, you're the man. And it's a great mentality to walk around the earth with, too, that you can handle any situation that comes along. So, I mean, I don't know. Can you add any benefits that you see?
Yeah, so you hit on a lot of good points. Starting kids too early. I totally agree with that. The more and older I get, the more I study wrestling, and who do you study the best, right? Who do you study the best? Russia, right? They're the best in the world, hands down. I mean, there's no one even close to them. Is U.S. creeping in? Sure, they're creeping in. We're getting better, but
we got small countries like Iran that are pretty damn good.
They're probably second best, and then the U.S. But I think there should be a prerequisite. I think kids clubs should say, hey, you need 2 years of gymnastics before you get into wrestling.
Create body awareness, strength.
Because that's what wrestling is. And that's when kids get hurt, or the kids get confused on certain skills, certain movements. They just don't have that athletic ability there yet, right? So a big part of my practice is, it doesn't matter if it's youth or high school, right away is, hey, we're doing gymnastics every day. We're going to do some forward rolls, backward rolls, handsprings, cartwheels, etc. Right? And then I also think a lot of clubs, and I've had this conversation with the gentleman who runs the Oak Forest Warriors, is you set a fee at $250 or $400, whatever it is, and then you sell it to the parents, says, hey, your tournaments are included in this. Yeah. So what does that do? Hey, I'm going to get my money's worth. I'm going to stick my kid in a tournament every weekend.
Right.
At the end of the day, here in Illinois, and I'm sure it's the same in other places, these tournaments are a big money grab. So now you're in a gym full of 500, 750 kids, right? And they're sitting there all day. And for little guys, even though they're getting there at 6 a.m., they're probably done at 12, 1 o'clock. You're talking about 7 hours in the gym, and they wrestle twice.
Yep. Right.
Is that really, do the kids mind it? No, it's the parents. Yep, so when you're introducing the sport, you're not only introducing the sport to the kids, but you're introducing it to the parents as well. And
that makes for a tough dynamic, because I've seen parents that get crabby because they're there all day on their Sunday, and the kids get crabby, and then it creates a situation that's not the most fun situation in the world to get through. Every parent needs to step back from it and realize what you're trying to do. It's all practice until you're in high school, because none of that, the youth stuff, it all matters to you when you're there and you want to win, and that's what you should do. I told my boys when they were little, I go, I never want you to be comfortable with losing, but you can't lose your shit when you lose either. So it's going to happen, but just look at it like as a learning experience every single time. Try and run the match back through your head. What did you do? How'd you get? You know what I mean? Come away with something. Be like, hey, if I let less guys touch my legs, I'll win more matches.
Correct.
That's it. So if you just took that one thing away from it, and the next time you're at practice, be like, all right, I'm going to focus on, he's not getting me. I'm not getting scored on. And if I can drag him into the third period, I'm going to score, and then I'm going to win the match. So if you can get that one learning, you could lose 100 matches, and if you ingrain that in a kid's head, he's going to win more matches now, and everything's going to be better. So, the tournament thing for the IK, I went back to coaching this year, took my boys with me to coach. I wanted them to look at it from another viewpoint, be a coach. And we got our banquet tonight, which will be, I can't wait. It's totally going to be fun to see all the little guys. I mean, it's high five. It is, wrestling creates a brotherhood, or when the wrestlers are at high school, they're a band of guys. They hang out with each other. They're going through the same thing and everything else. The little guys, after the first couple tournaments, everybody loves everybody in the room as far as that goes. Now, the first month of practice before the first tournaments, they're all kind of trying to beat each other up, rank for position. Who's the alpha kid here, and all that other stuff. So, I mean, it's primal. It's a thing that I think a lot of humans boys and girls, and we'll hit on that too, because I'm all for girls wrestling, and I hope that Illinois gets their act together and gets a girls division in high school soon, and I know they will. I know that's the plan, but there's something missing in human beings that creates depression, overeating, all kinds of other symptoms come from not being the animal that we are. And I mean, I used to walk around a construction site, and if someone didn't tackle me or knock me down or punch me or something in a month, I felt like something was wrong. I'm like, come on, somebody's got to get a little scrap or something going on, because that's the animal thing. Now, maybe everyone doesn't have that, but when it's missing, it's missing. I mean, that's wrestling's, if you have a couple cats, they'll just wrestle with each other. It's an organic thing that happens. But so little guys, the IKWF in Illinois start them out at 4 now, which is insane.
You can even start at 3.
Is it? Yeah. Right.
But they changed the age groups now. Even with my own little guy, Tony will laugh at me. I'd say, I'm not going to put him in tournaments. And then he keeps pressing me. Can I go to a tournament? Can I go to a tournament? So, hey, I threw him in that tournament. And then I sat down and I said, all right, I'm putting a max number on how many matches you can wrestle, right? And then he'd fight with me. I want to wrestle this week. I don't think you're not wrestling this weekend. You're not wrestling this weekend. And I want to keep that fire in.
I think you've created a dynamic. So with my guys when they were little, we used to see guys that were their parents were dragging them to practice. They wanted to stay home and play video games. The parent make them go to practice and everything else. I saw that when my guys were little. I'm like, all right, I got that. That's not going to happen. I'm never doing.
I think there's a fine line there, though. I think.
But I changed it on my guys. Yeah. They one time were screwing around with each other at home. After school, we were going to go to practice, and I said, listen, keep screwing around, no practice. And they both looked at me at first, and they were like, no? And I'm like, yeah, no, it's a privilege. You can't go to practice if you're jacking around. I go, get a C in one of your classes. You don't go to, no more wrestling. You'll be at school trying to figure out how to get that C to be a B or an A. So they looked at wrestling from a young age as a total privilege, as a thing I get to go do, not a thing I have to go do. And they still, my guys love it. They really do. They're usually got Flow Wrestling on in the gym. They're training all year. They really like being wrestlers. It's a thing that they take big pride in, which I like that they identify as wrestlers, because I don't want them to identify as a class clown, anything that's detrimental to who they are. So the little guys, I think it's great that parents get them involved in it. My boys both wrestled every single tournament when they were 6 years old. Every tournament that came up, they went to it. At the end of the year, Garrett was getting a little anxious about the tournaments. Every time they called Tots to the bullpen, he's like, Dad, I don't know what it is. When he says Tots to the bullpen, I don't like it. And I'm like, all right. I go, let's do this. Do you like to go to practice? And he's like, I like practice, but I'm not that fond of the competing. I go, well, don't compete anymore. Stop. And he's like, fine. So we would go to the tournaments. He would sit there, and his brother would compete for like the last 3 tournaments. And then the next year, I said, well, what do you want to do? He said, well, I want to compete because I don't get any medals if I don't. Yeah. So, and that was just me. Like, I'm not living through them. I got buddies that I grew up with that hear I haven't talked to them in years, and they hear my sons are wrestling and doing well. And like, oh, like they're mean. And I'm like, my kids aren't. You've seen my kids wrestle. They're not mean. Yeah. My kids are never pulling cheap shots or anything like that. I was a mean kid growing up with fights and stuff like that. I don't live vicariously through my kids. When they're not mean, I'm not trying to make them mean. I don't look at them and go, you got to be angry. You got to be. No, just you do you.
I think I have a conversation with my little guy all the time. He's like, he'll say, I didn't do good today. And I watch, and he'll be in on a double leg, and the guy will sprawl. And I think those are the times where they're really, really learning more about themselves than they are about wrestling itself.
Yeah.
They're fighting through a position, and it makes them stronger mentally. I think too many people put accolades as the most important thing in wrestling, and it's really not, because at the end of the day, how many kids are really going to go to college and wrestling? When they're done suiting up their senior year, it's it.
Right.
That's it for them. So what do they walk away with, right? And the best thing you can walk away with is a work ethic and mental toughness. And you go on to a job, and whatever it is your career, whatever your career is, if you have that work ethic and mental toughness to push through in tough times, hey, your boss is going to be the one giving you those raises.
Yeah, 2 good points. One of them is a Dan Gable quote where he's like, once you've wrestled, everything else is easy. And then the other one is the Fight Club line where he's like, what do you ever really know about yourself until you've been in a fight? Mm-hmm. And that's what you were talking about. Your kid learned. You learn a lot. And I learned a lot from a guy who, wrestling is a situation where you cannot be on your back. As soon as you're on your back, you're getting scored on. It's happening. Mm-hmm. You're losing right now. Every time your back is exposed to freestyle, just exposure. So you have to be on point all the time. And if you do end up on your back, you got to fight off your back. Now, put a person in that vulnerable position on their back and make them fight off of it. Make that a metaphor for life, right? There's all kinds of times where life may put you on your back, and then you got to fight from your back, right?
Off, right?
That's my. I got a clip here from one of my favorite speeches from.
Let me tell you something you already know.
It's a Rocky
The world ain't all
Balboa.
sunshine and rainbows. It's a very mean and nasty place, and I don't care how tough you are, it will beat you to your knees and keep you there permanently if you let it. You, me, or nobody is gonna hit as hard as life. But it ain't about how hard you hit. It's about how hard you can get hit and keep moving forward. How much you can take and keep moving forward. That's how winning is done. Now, if you know what you're worth, now go out and get what you're worth. But you gotta be willing to take the hits and not pointing fingers saying you ain't where you want to be because of him or her or any.
And that's, to me, that's wrestling because it's all on you, right?
Sure.
There's no team. You can't point fingers. You know whose fault it is? It's your fault.
Yeah.
You didn't pay attention this week. You didn't work hard enough. You didn't. When the coach was instructing the move you tried to run, you were looking at the ceiling. You were goofing with your friend. Whatever like that. So another reason that my boys, that wrestling was going to be a thing that they were going to do was because life for me was easy. I was a general contractor. I was making tons of dough. All I had to do was not be a drunk. And I used to take my clients, my prospective clients, jump in the truck. I'll show you where your other guys that gave you estimates are. Take them over to the White Horse Bar. There's this guy, this. They're all of the vehicles are sitting there with the signs on the side. These dumbasses are advertising that they're at 3:30 in the bar, and I'm not. It's 5:30. I'm here with you, and there's no alcohol in my breath. So life was easy till I broke my neck, and then it was like, holy shit, got real fucking hard. So if I can instill I'm not going to be beat even if I'm on my back attitude with my kids, then hopefully life's easy for them the whole way. I hope it is.
Right.
But if it ever gets really, really fucking hard,
Yeah.
they can fight off their back.
Yeah.
Right. Which, you've been on your back. I've been on my back.
Mm-hmm.
It's a bad feeling. I don't like to sleep on my back because I don't like to be on my back. So, but you got to overcome that. You got to, that's like in anything, overcome your fears, do what you got to do. I couldn't stress to someone, if I cared about somebody immensely and they were having kids, I honestly couldn't pick a better thing for you to do but to get your kid into some sort of, and I mean, I had Leo from Randori Jiu-Jitsu in here, grappling, same thing. You know what I mean? Like, learn how to handle yourself in a situation. And we talked about the other things that the byproducts of the wrestling, and they were, you look great, you get shredded from all that, the confidence situation, and if you're in a situation like I said, Leo, you're Batman. I mean, if they were more realistic with the Bruce Wayne story, at some point he would have been a wrestler from when he was 6 years old until he was through, right? He was a college All-American because he can handle anybody in any situation. So, those are all the things that I see. If you got anything to add.
Yeah, I said it a lot this year. I started back from the high school room doing it with kids, and I tell the kids all the time, successful people are comfortable in uncomfortable situations, right? So we would put a huge emphasis on finding positions that we weren't very good at and spending a whole day, maybe 2 days, of
Sure.
just wrestling through
Right.
those positions. And it's not just wrestling; they're learning a lot about themselves, what they're really truly capable of. So that's always fun to see, especially in the kids.
Yeah.
You see it, the light bulb go off, and then they're competing against good kids. I try to tell them. My first thing I told them right from the gate this year was, I don't concern myself with winning and losing. I want to see progression and effort. As
Right.
long as those things are there, those two other tangibles, winning and losing, take care of themselves.
Yeah, I mean, if you really take back a bigger picture of it, the winning and losing doesn't matter as much as the work ethic and everything else you're going to get from it, because someday wrestling is going to be over. And if you pull the other things, the byproduct of I eat healthy, I keep in shape, like if you're always guys get a health club membership and they go, all right, it's New Year's, I'm gonna go work out, and blah 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 blah, and then they work out for 2 months and they quit working out. The reason they quit working out is they got nothing to work out for. If you're an athlete, you're training for that next match you have to have. So you're not thinking about, I got to drudge myself off to the gym so that I can look in the mirror. You're going to the looking in the mirror thing. That's a thing that just happens all on its own. And I mean, there's some physiques where guys are built like Greek gods in wrestling.
Yeah, I think you're starting to see more of that, and guys start to go away from cutting weight.
Yes,
You're seeing
yes.
it a ton in the college level, and now it's starting to trickle down into the high school level. I'm not a big fan of the kids doing it the older I get. When I first started coaching kids level and started my own club,
Yeah.
I kind of was blinded to what the whole purpose was, and then as I started going, I started figuring it out. I would recommend kids cutting down a weight class, and you could see it in them. As the
I think
season
you
went,
gotta
it started
do it,
dying.
right.
It started killing them inside. Like, I don't like this anymore. I don't want to do this. There's such a fine line in that when you're dealing with kids too. Is I say it all the time. When I first started coaching, I'm a motivator. I don't have a problem motivating kids. I felt I was pretty good at it. I'm still good at it. But I felt like I was motivating kids to the point where they would leave me after 8th grade and go to high school, and then they would go backwards because not that their high school coaches weren't good, they just weren't the motivating type.
Sure,
they weren't
sure.
on them constantly on what they needed to do to get better, or providing those outside opportunities for them, where now you're at the next level, you have to figure this out yourself.
Right.
And then kids start to quit because
teenage boy thing too's got that other element where if like my boys deal with it all the time, and I tell them, listen, don't buy into any of that crap. If you're a teenage boy and you make it known that you're putting everything you got into something and you fail, that's worse than I don't really care about it. It's not a big deal. So you got a lot of kids that are in sports that are like, whatever. They act like nonchalant. There ain't one of them that's not sad when they lose, but they try and put it off like it's not that, like they're not trying that hard because their ego will be hurt.
and that's the one thing that wrestling will teach you right now, how to lose.
Right. Oh, yeah.
You're going to
Everyone's
learn
gonna
how to lose.
Right.
There's no one that is undefeated their whole life.
No,
You're going to lose.
Right. I mean, there's a couple that are. I mean, there's the one guy that I coached that when he was little, and he hardly ever. But every once in a while, he's still losing. He's got to deal with that. When it comes to parents, like I want to talk about that. It seems like the worst thing that ever happens to a parent. I've dealt with parents that were terrific. They always are on another level for me because they made the first step. They've got their kid at wrestling. So, all right, I'm probably going to like you, so we're going to work out good. But as soon as their kid is successful at something, a lot of them flip out. It's like this. It turns into this thing, and I'm like, I don't understand it. I put my kids in gymnastics, my daughter in gymnastics, and my son's in wrestling. Both don't have professional levels at it. They both are just academic sports where you can go to college and do it there if you so desire. But it's a situation where you get the kid in it, and it makes for good grades. It makes for a disciplined life. Everything is good. but there's not this big, huge brass ring that these parents seem to lose their shit over. And I don't get it. I don't understand what you're getting so worked up about, besides the fact that your kid is 7 or 8 years old. Just because he won the one big tournament doesn't mean anything. You're going to ruin this for him. Every kid wants their parents loved. They want to make their parents proud. And if they see you being emotional and you're an adult, it makes it a lot more stress for them.
Yep.
So, and I know it's hard for people to keep themselves in check. I know wonderful people that will be Matt's side and their kid starts to lose and they do the double wave them off and walk off, and then dads are like, I'm not coming back again, you suck. And I'm like, oh my God, like this is, what are you doing?
Yeah.
Like, so
it's an emotional sport.
Yes.
Especially for the little guys, when you first start to get them in there, you can expect there to be some type of emotion, and every kid's different. They might get angry, they might cry. We have, as adults, we have to be able to help them through those things.
Sure.
And sometimes it's your foot to the fire type of thing. Hey, you got to deal with it.
I think it's a tough transition today, too, because a lot of parents treat their kids like rock stars. And the kid, he's 6 years old. The parents are losing at checkers to the kid. The kid's never done a thing that ever went wrong in his life. And then he shows up here and, reality slaps you right in the face. And it's like, holy shit, I'm not good enough. I've never not been good enough. And then I'm upset. And that's when we deal with the first time when the mom comes and says, well, Johnny won't be coming anymore because it's not Johnny's thing. And I always look at him and go, Johnny's 6, right? So you're an adult. Make it Johnny's thing.
Right.
Because you'll be happy once it is. And I think bringing my sons there as juniors in high school now and being like, here's the proof in the pudding. My 2 guys are still doing it. They still enjoy it. I'm not dragging them anywhere. Just listen to what I have to say, because if you have the right mentality, it'll make your life a whole lot easier. My son's schedule during wrestling season is get up, go to school, go to practice, come home, do homework, possibly lift weights, go to bed.
Right.
There's no time in there for smoking joints, or there's no time for any of that shit, right?
Sure,
it's like, it's right there.
Yeah.
And
I think just to hit on that, you hear all the time that like people say kids change. No, us as adults are changing. The structure of the school system changed since I was in school.
Right.
They are a product of that system. So we have to adjust to their thought process.
Every parent I see that is pissed off or posts on social media about the kids eating Tide Pods, I always think to myself, well, I hope your kid's enjoying those Tide Pods. My kids aren't eating Tide Pods, but your kids must. And if you think that the kids eating Tide Pods is a problem with the kids,
that's probably the same parent that said,
it's a parent problem.
Go play your PlayStation, leave me alone.
Yep.
Right? Not get outside.
Right.
Throw a line in the lake and try and catch some fish, or go climb a tree.
How can I get some attention? I'll eat a Tide Pod.
Yeah.
Right.
But bonding, that's so important.
So you were saying you have conversations with your 6-year-old. Isn't it great to have conversations with 6-year-olds? I have conversations with my sons that are awesome. Like, we talk about, and I think it's the bonding thing, like you just said, through wrestling. We have always had where after a match, if win or lose, we talk about it, stuff like that. So, like, we talk about, astrophysics, all kinds of, we talk about politics, we talk about all kinds of stuff where I have engaging conversations with teenagers.
Sure.
I look at some parents, I'm like, there's no way you're having conversations with your kid. I don't know if you talk to them at all.
True.
Right.
True.
So, and to me, that's a thing where they tell me a little more probably than they even should sometimes. But I can be like, hey, I know Justin at practice acts like aloof and it doesn't matter. But I go, don't start acting like that. That's not a way out. You're not going to be happy. I go, would you be happy if you felt like, or you put it off to everyone that it wasn't that important to you and you were losing, or you let everyone know that it was important to you. You said, I can't go to that party. I can't do this. I got to work out. I got to do this. And then you won. And I go, what's better, winning or not? And they're like, well, winning is way better. And wrestling's one of those sports where it's this, and gymnastics is the same. You're a single, it's a one-person sport. So when you get your hand raised, it's all on you. You did it all. There's just a...
So there's again, See, I keep going back to there's a fine line. There's such wrestling. There's such a fine line, and every kid is different, right? So that might be the circumstance. I happened to coach a kid who's had tons of success, winning in the IKWF, winning Tulsa, goes to high school, places as a freshman, a sophomore. I get to the room with him his junior year, and I start realizing some things like, hey, man, dude don't have no social life. Like, this is an issue.
Yeah, sure.
You're not out hanging out with your peers, and when I ask you, wrestling can't consume you, right? It could be part of your daily routine.
Right.
And it could be part of your drive to be successful as a person.
Sure.
Right? But it can't consume you totally. Like, that's what happened to me my senior year. And when it was said and done, I was done with the sport. Like, hey, I gave everything I could. And it didn't work out. This obviously isn't for me. And that's what the thought process when you fail, right?
Yeah, you got to be a well-balanced human being.
Yeah.
There's no sense that you can win all the things in the world. If you can't socially interact with people, then what's the use in life?
Right.
I mean, I started the podcast because I liked having a couple drinks or sit down and have like real conversations about real stuff is fun for me. It's a great thing. I learn a lot from people. I get a lot of just mental stimulation from having a good conversation. That's a social thing that goes on. So if I didn't have that, like, life would not be good. And yes, you could be very one-dimensional if you're wrestling.
Absolutely.
Wrestling. Right.
You're truly setting yourself up for failure in the long run.
Right. And that the whole idea behind putting the kid in the first place is that he succeeds. Now, everybody's got their different, judgment calls on what is success. I look at my sons, and they've been doing carpentry since they were 12 years old. They did $80,000 worth of construction work last summer for the 10 or 11 weeks that went on. I have no worries about them being financially successful. Now, the idea is that they're successful in life, that they have a good family, that they,
good fathers.
They're fathers, that they, if they desire to be. Don't know what'll go on there, but they do something that they enjoy doing, that they get out and they get a line in the water and they fish, and they like that stuff. But you can't work in your whole life for some job you're at. That's nonsense too. You need to have time out with your friends and all that stuff.
You see it all the time in the professional world. Their job just consumes them, and it affects their behavior on a regular day basis. I have that conversation with my boss all the time, like, hey man, you got to step back and kind of
chill.
Yeah, put your thought process in better perspective here. Like, this place, they could replace you tomorrow.
Oh, and they will.
Yeah. You could die today, and they will have somebody in here 3 days.
Right.
So let's not get caught up in this. Sure, is there stressful times? There's going to be stressful times.
You should take your job serious. Correct. Now, I don't know what you guys did at Stag, but or at Marian Catholic even too. My guys, they do team bonding. So high school wrestling is usually Thursday, Friday, and Saturday. You got a couple duels and then a tournament on Saturday, and then you're done. So they cut loose on Saturday night, and those guys do things like they'll hit Route 30 and hit 15 different freaking fast food places and eat whatever the hell they want to all day long.
Well, you always have that camaraderie with your buddies when it comes to wrestling, and especially when we cut so much weight, which I'm so.
It's totally different now. The parents should know that too. That my guys now, I don't want to say totally different, because my guys still take off a good 12, 14 pounds because they.
But it's just changing the diet.
Yes, changing the diet, and all of a sudden
putting the pop down, drinking more water.
Right. Well, we don't drink much pop anyway, but. All it really is eat healthy. They eat plenty of food. It's just the right food, and all of a sudden the workout, the intensity goes up with that too.
Because you have the right nutrients in your body to keep building on your cardiovascular.
But once the actual practice for the season starts, my guys drop 4 or 5 pounds without changing anything yet, and then they start changing their diet.
In a practice, they'll lose 4 or 5 pounds.
And then there's so many resources out there now for proper weight. I don't want to say proper weight cutting. Let's say anything over 10 pounds, I consider that cutting. If you're taking off 6 or 7 pounds to make a weight. That's not cutting. All you did was eat right and run a little bit more. That's not cutting weight. If you're taking off 14, you're probably cutting a little bit
So
of
let's
weight.
talk about that too, though. So you said running,
Yep.
right? And I try to tell kids in the high school level all the time, hey, you should be out running 3 miles a day.
My guys do.
It's not because you're cutting weight.
No.
It's to
Strategy.
challenge your mental.
No, strategy too. My guys, if they can keep it real close all the way to the third, they're going to get the guy in the third because everybody is, what's the Robinson comment? We're all cowards when we're, stamina makes us
sure.
all cowards. So, my guys, the idea is I'm going to keep it as close as possible. And in the third period, I'm going to wear you out. And I don't care who you are. I can score on you then.
Right.
So, yeah, my guys probably run 4 miles 4 days a week during the season.
Yeah.
And that's it. Every other day, 4 miles. Go.
So much into it. Like you're out hitting a run and it's cold outside, right? And hey, it's easy to get on a treadmill and run, but like, hey, you're a wrestler. You want to be mentally tough. Let's get outside in the dead of winter. Hit a
Like
good
the Russians.
Hit a good 3-4 mile run.
Right.
When you're halfway through it and your mind is going, I don't want to do this no more.
Right.
And you got to push through. When it's all said and done, hey, you feel a lot better about yourself when
Sure.
when you accomplish that and finish.
Yeah, it's like
that.
getting your homework done.
Right.
You're
Sure.
more confident now.
Yeah.
I can go to school and I got it done.
Yeah, exactly.
Right. No, totally. And so and there's so much. The wrestling world is so. I've met so many great people around it that like everyone's watching Flow Wrestling. You're like,
Oh yeah, they have access to so much.
access to so much. Track
My 6-year-old
wrestling.
son, I will be like, it'll be quiet. And I'm like, where the hell is he at? I'll go in his room. He'll be on the iPad watching
YouTube videos or
watching wrestling matches on YouTube. I'm like, are you kidding me?
right.
All right, dude, whatever. Carry on.
Yeah, and I mean, it's also a generational. You went through the pitfalls of, like your story is actually terrific. Like I like that better than the guy who stepped on the mat and won everything all the way through. He's a college All-American. Everything came super easy. There's a reason why Michael Jordan's not a coach in the NBA.
Sure.
You can't coach what that guy's got.
Yeah, I say that all the time,
Right.
It doesn't matter what your personal credentials are. Now you have a guy like Ben Askren. He's able to kind of tame what his personal credentials are to what coaching is. Right?
He's
He's pretty
incredible.
amazing, right?
Yes. Oh, I watch
Yeah.
his
Some
Metal
other
Mondays
guys,
and- yes.
just not. I won't. I see a few in the IHSA. These guys were super successful, but their high school program just really isn't. Whether they're not getting the kids, well, then that falls back on, hey, let's start an IKWF program, right? And if you have the IKWF program, one hand feeds the other.
High school wrestling's strange too because you've got the public schools and the Catholic schools, private schools all wrestle together. So Catholic schools can recruit. They straight up go get the best kids to come to the school, and high school kids are like, they got to live in my district, and so it's like a crapshoot if the kid that's good lives in your district, and if he's really, really good, the Catholic school already scraped him up and took him and gave him, everything else, which I think is, nonsense. So when you see, it's hard to gauge coaching. Like Montini's a terrific program over there, and I'm sure Izzy is, he's a world-class coach. But not every single coach gets the raw material he gets. You know what I mean? Those kids were pretty damn good when they showed up. Now, there are some stories in there where I've seen guys that were good, and he made them great.
Sure.
So, he's a he's a terrific coach. I don't know the ins and outs of the coaching in that. Are they recruiting just as hard for coaches, those schools?
I think most of those coaches are a product of Izzy's high school,
For just for
Mikey
for
Benefiel
Montini,
is a
but even
as a
like
Montini guy, right?
Even Marmion and all those other schools that are on top of their game, are they really running out looking for the best talent coach wise? Because I don't know how that job search is happening.
They have some pretty high level guys.
Yeah,
in there, right?
I see them. Right.
Yeah.
So high school wrestling is strange like that, but the beauty of it is, if you have like one of the best kids that I
You
know,
got to be able to, in a high school level, you have to be able to have, again, I go back to that fine line thing. You have to be able to have that buddy relationship with the kids.
Yeah.
And almost like a father figure relationship with them, where
Right.
there's that respect level, but hey, we can play grab ass and have fun at the same time,
Sure,
right?
sure.
And that's where the trust, the grab ass part comes in, where the trust comes in from the kids' side of things. The father figure thing, as far as a coach is concerned, that's where my trust comes into you, right? So there's that fine line there. It can't be all business all the time.
So like my guys in their program, when they first got to Lincoln Way West, they were like, hey, Rudy's kind of mean to us and Rudiger and stuff like that. And I'm like, yeah. I go, that's good. Like, that's good. And I'm like, because he thinks you can do. And they go, and I'm like, it'd be a lot of fun if you were no good at wrestling. Rudy wouldn't
even pay any attention
No, he
to
wouldn't
you.
pay no attention to you at all. He would laugh at you, talk to you. He wouldn't ignore you as a person, but he wouldn't be up your ass to try and get you to do stuff. And so then they took that as, oh, okay, all right. I go, the day that Rudy doesn't pay any attention to you, then start worrying.
Yeah.
Because that's when you're not doing what you're doing. But it doesn't matter your skill
And how many
level.
people has Rudy dealt with who've had tons of success in the IKWF, come into his high school, he's been around forever.
Oh, yeah.
Come into his high school room thinking their shit don't stink
Yep.
and have to deal with that.
Right.
So
Sure.
now you're dealing with egos too as a coach. And
right.
you got to set them straight at some point,
Sure.
And tough love goes a long way when it
Right,
comes
but
to
every
that.
coach is gauging how the level of intensity that they have with each guy, with the level of skill that you have. You're going to kill yourself as a coach coming in there and beating up on guys that aren't that serious about. Like, what are you wasting your time for with this situation? So, that right.
I've been there.
Yeah. It's going back and coaching for me. It was a lot of it was a lot of stress and a lot of all right, I'm donating all my time to this situation that I don't have a kid in, which it was fun and I enjoy teaching the little guys stuff and everything else. But it was less stressful, like not having to worry about guys winning or losing and stuff like that. Like if you take that stress off of the kid, I think they'll enjoy themselves more, and just success will be bred from that situation.
And there has to be that relationship there as a parent, as a coach, and you have to be able to identify body language, different attitudes that you're getting, and as a coach, be able to communicate with the parents and say, hey, it might be time to take a couple weeks off, or hey, you haven't been doing so many tournaments, it might be time to pick it up a little bit.
There's
Let's
definitely
add a
parents
couple
that I
more
wish they put their hands on it a little more. Mm-hmm. I had a guy that I was coaching when he was 7 years old. He was kind of a heavy kid. He really loved wrestling, and he was a sweet kid, terrific, but he was heavy. I mean, like a 110-pound 9-year-old, big boy. But he was out there doing it. And then once you start to get 6th, 7th grade, all of a sudden the kids he's wrestling, they're 1.5 feet taller than him. They're like jacked kids, and he's getting beat up. And I feel like, man, those parents, stop giving that kid ice cream. Do something. Don't you see what's going on? That's not my position to get involved in that. But this is a kid that has a passion for doing this. He likes it. He likes identifying as this. But his diet must be horrible because we're putting him through all the paces. He should be losing weight, and he's not. And then his 8th grade year, he didn't qualify for Rockford. And I'm like, you know what? There's almost no reason why a kid that started when he's 7 years old can't qualify for Rockford when he's an 8th grader.
Sure.
That should happen. That's on somebody as far as it goes. I hope the best for him. I hope that they can keep.
As a coach, you take so much blame for that, right?
Feel
I could have
bad.
did this. I could have done that.
I
could have done this. I could have done.
Right. But I don't want to get, because people get real weird about, the whole. I've had parents tell me your kids are gonna have eating problems and stuff like that. My kids have no eating problems. They eat just fine. In fact, they eat healthier than most.
Yeah, I
kids
have a
do.
garden in my house all the time. So my kids eating vegetables has been something right from the gate. Hey, can you go outside and grab some tomatoes or grab a cucumber or something? Hey, and they enjoy it.
Right.
It's just about what you're, as a family structure, what are you willing to do to pass along to your kids? Hey, is it easy to stop over at McDonald's and grab a value meal?
Yeah.
That's why they have it there.
Right. It's not good for your wallet. It's not good for your body.
Yeah.
None of it's good for you in the long run. I mean, you're going to spend more time with the doctor when you get older, if you're eating that way too.
Should a kid enjoy those things every once in a while? Sure. Hey,
Right.
we want to get a kid a Happy Meal, get a kid a Happy Meal. But that shouldn't be a
Right.
2-3 times a week thing either, right?
But the byproducts of the wrestling, I don't know how you see it, but I see, first off, the wrestlers in high school, that's the special forces of the sports. Like those are the psyops guys compared to the other guys in other sports. The other guys in other sports are soldiers the same way. They're taking it serious, whatever they're doing. But the wrestlers, those guys are Batman as far as life goes and everything else. But when that happens, they don't seem to carry that attitude of like walking off
cockiness.
The cockiness. I see basketball
That's what
players.
You see more humble.
Yeah, I see
kids
basketball and
through
football
wrestling,
players that
sure.
are far more cocky
Yeah.
than. And I was like thought that's so silly, because if there was a basketball or football player that gave one of my boys a try, my boys have had 900 matches.
Mm-hmm.
You're gonna lose.
Yeah.
It's gonna go bad for you.
Or it's going to be one hell of a fight.
Well, yeah, right. However, but it's not going to work out how you think it's going to. You've been looking in the mirror, lifting weights, and playing football. Like, that's not what this is. This is a whole other thing. We always say that it's making critical decisions under severe distress, because that's what you have to do in that sport. Let's talk about some other issues. That one of them that I wanted to bring up was there's a kid in Texas that is. I see people on social media ragging on this kid and the kid's parents and everything else. And it's the kid in Texas that is a wrestler, high school wrestler, and is in the girls division and keeps winning. It's like a 3-time state champ as a girl, and it's a transgender. But the people that are posting it, they have it backwards. The situation, because they post the headline, but they don't read the article. The kid was born female, lives in Texas. Texas is backward, and I want to say Texas is backward. Texas is progressive enough to have a girls and boys division, which Illinois does not. So they've already got a girls division in high school for a state, but because this who wants to be a boy or identifies as a boy, they will not let Mac wrestle in the boys division. It's not a situation where it's a boy who wants to be a girl and is in the girls division and beating girls. It's a female who wants to wrestle boys, but the state will not. There's nothing more noble than this kid. This kid's doing everything the kid's supposed to do, obviously working his ass off to be a good wrestler, and must
To
have
even think that they can compete.
3-time state champ.
He
must
could compete against boys.
right
whatever
to
it
think
is.
that too, and to be a 3-time state champ. There's plenty of girls that are technically sound in what they're doing.
absolutely.
So this kid must be pretty special as far as that goes. So the work ethic and everything that's supposed to be there is there. The state is what's screwing this up. Now, there's some girl wrestlers in Illinois that
Pretty tough.
Oh, yeah. I mean, got the first win at state last year by a female. To make it to IKWF or not IKWF state to
IHSA.
to ISA state, you got to be pretty darn good to get there in the first place.
Pretty tough.
And then to beat a boy there is another one. That's a pretty big deal to begin with. So I mean, I have all of the respect in the world for that. I also don't look at the girls in wrestling. I wish it wasn't so prevalent when I started my boys out. I wish I would have started my daughter.
It's growing so much.
Yes, I wish I would have started my
applaud it.
daughter. Yeah.
I think you're seeing USA Wrestling at least promote it with Helen Morales being successful at the world level, Adeline Gray being
And
successful.
now I'll watch those matches, and I'll tell you what. Maybe it's because wrestling is such a sport where we've talked about this too. In wrestling, they put a singlet on each guy, headgear, shoes, and you weigh the same. You're about the same age, and you go wrestle. This is as even as it gets. You don't need to be genetically superior. if you're 7 foot tall, you're going to be better at basketball than the guys that's 5 foot tall. So wrestling's not like that. There's a spot for everybody in there to totally excel if you put the work into it. Helen Margolis, oh my, that trip she's got is
It's insane.
It's awesome. The focus that she's using in learning her craft, it's amazing.
So that's a story. It's on. You can see it on social media where she talks about starting wrestling and not even winning in a match, always having to wrestle boys. So going back to the Texas thing, I'm all for if a girl who wants to identify as a boy, whatever it is, I'm not going to get into any of that, wants to compete against boys, why are they holding her back?
Right.
Let her compete against the boys.
Whether
and if
not
she takes an ass whooping, she takes an ass whooping. And
I'll
she
tell you
has to
that I've read the articles and looked into it because wrestling's near and dear to my heart. When I saw the knuckleheads, the people that are afraid of the bathroom thing, there's transgender people are not doing this all to themselves so they can get into the bathroom with your child. That's not a thing. There's this person I had here last night went through surgeries and all. Life is a constant ridicule for this person. This is not also that they can look at your child take a poop. Like that's not a thing. So this person obviously identifies as a boy, but the boys in Texas, they don't want they have. So I was trying to make it out that maybe Texas was more progressive. They don't have a girls' division because they're more progressive. They have a girls' division because they're so religious down there. The boys felt, a little funny in the shorts when they were wrestling girls.
Well, I think it's hard. You're raised.
We had a couple years ago in Illinois that there was a situation where 2 boys decided to default out of their matches with a girl that made it to state because they wouldn't
Wrestle a girl.
They didn't want to wrestle a girl.
Yeah, so that's a tough. It's definitely tough. I hope that girls wrestling continues to grow and the girls can just compete against the girls. You raise your boys to keep your hands off of women, right?
Oh yeah.
And then all of a sudden, hey, that whistle blows. You better get after her.
See, I would disagree with you there. If you get on the mat and you're on the mat, you're no longer a black guy, a Mexican guy. How about you've seen the guys that like Kyle Maynard that were born with no arms and no legs, and they're wrestling. Robles won a national championship
with one leg.
One leg.
Yeah.
He was born with one leg and won a national championship hopping on one foot.
Mm-hmm.
Like, to me, that's oh my God, like that's beyond.
It's hard to wrap your brain around that.
Whoa, yeah, you must have a whole nother thing. The Kyle Maynard guy, in his state, was one of the best wrestlers in high school. He had back to the elbows. Have you seen this guy on YouTube? Mm-hmm. He walks around like a dog and everything else, and he's wrestling kids.
Sure.
So you can't, if you're that kid's opponent, you can't get on there and feel sorry for him. Peyton got on the mat this year. There was a kid that was autistic, and he's like, he wanted to take it easy. Kid came all after him. He was like, oh, like I was trying to be, and I'm like, I have to get off the mat. And he beat the kid, but I mean, when he got off the mat, I'm like, don't do that again. You're gonna get beat by a kid because you're acting like he's somehow disabled. He's not disabled. He's out there on the mat. So when that girl steps on the mat, it's not a girl right now.
Yeah,
this is my opponent.
Got to experience that myself when I had the junior Spartans. My wife's special ed, and one of her girlfriends at the school she was at the time was like, hey, there's this boy, he's 6th grade, he's about 200 and something pounds, he's slightly autistic. And I'm thinking to myself, okay, now I'm being ignorant when I say this. Okay, autistic, how's this going to work in wrestling, right? I'm like, hey, have him come out and try it out. Ended up being one of the best kids I ever coached.
Actually works out really good. Yeah.
Won state medal at 215 pounds, right? Like one of the greatest stories I could tell my kids, my grandkids as they get older. Hey, Grandpa, what was your favorite? That would be one of my favorite things. Like, hey, this kid came in, he worked just as hard as everybody. Communication was a little different, but you learn and you adapt to it, right? Yeah. So tons of fun with that one.
I think parents that try and get around obstacles for their children are doing more harm then they're
So
doing
that goes
help.
back to we're changing. The kids aren't changing.
Yeah, right. Parents trying to help their kids succeed. When my daughter first started to walk, I'd push her down. Boom. All right, get up. She'd have to get up again. She started to try and walk, and I'd put a box in front of her. Obstacles. My job in life is not to make things easy for you. I had a parent tell me one time, you know what my parenting philosophy is? Make things as easy for as long as I can on my kids. And my head wanted to explode. This is exactly the opposite. If I see a kid that's excelling, I'm going to make the wall higher. I'm going to do the thing to make it more difficult for you to do. Because when I'm done with you, life's going to be a breeze. Because everything that I could put in front of you, I put in front of you, and you got over it. That's going to be fine. So the kid that's got autism, the kid, whatever they got going on with them, like I said, they're a better version of themselves. Challenge them.
They're a product of their environment.
Right.
Put them in a room with a Xbox, a
Right.
wrestling mat, and a
Now-
bottle of whiskey.
Right.
You know, they're going to find a way to get in trouble.
Yeah.
And play Xbox.
Right.
And that wrestling mat's going to sit there.
Sure.
You take the other two away and just leave the rest. Guess what they're going to be doing?
Right.
It's-
Well, and that's the other thing. Like when I said about getting in shape and all that other stuff, if you want your kid to have an attitude of I'm in shape, don't teach them how to lift weights. Don't tell them just go running. Put them in something where they're going to get their butt kicked if they don't work.
Yeah.
And it'll be a motivation thing for them to do what they got to do. Now, girls in wrestling, I'm all for it. I like I said, I wish you could take a girl who's strong, athletic, and aggressive further than you could take a boy because the numbers are so small in the girls.
I was surprised this year when we got to the Warriors. I had just in my room this year 3 girls, and the little ones, I think there was maybe 4, right? So it's just more girls and more girls and more girls are coming. You
Right.
know, the IKWF needs to get. They have a girls' tournament. There's no qualifier
Right,
for it,
right.
but simply because the numbers aren't there.
But all that breeds. So you get more girls in wrestling. They grow up, become more wrestling coaches. Then you can have girls programs that are geared
Well,
towards.
one of the easiest scholarships to get right now for girls is girls wrestling in college.
Right. Well, that's what I'm saying.
Yeah.
You can take a girl to the next level easier than you can take a boy because the numbers aren't there. If you have some thoughts of having an Olympian as a child, you're going to have a much easier time to get her.
You better have a daughter.
Have a daughter and get her in there than you
Yeah.
are having a boy because Title IX changes all that.
Changes everything.
But there's nothing. Think about the most dangerous thing on the planet to a woman is a man. Now, make the woman Batman, right? I mean, I know some women that are heavy into jujitsu. They will fucking fuck you up. Like they will have you in an armbar. It don't matter if they're comfortable with being upside down, whatever. So if you get them in a position where they're going to get raped, you're getting triangle choked, you're getting choked
Yeah,
out.
sure.
It's going to happen. So there's just all these advantages. Then I made my daughter do jujitsu for 2 months. Just do it. And she didn't. She was a gymnast. They don't touch each other. She's like, I gotta touch people.
Yeah.
And I'm like, absolutely. And I wanted her to do it because I knew that girl someday was going to be in college. And when you're in college, I don't want some fucking jagoff to rape you and stuff you in a wall somewhere. You'll be able to handle yourself at least a little bit, or be used to someone grabbing a hold of you and you getting out of that situation. Now, all for the girls. I wish more people would do it. I wish more parents would stop handing their daughters dolls and all that other stuff. That, you know, there's a place for that and that's fine. But raise them like to conquer the world the same way you would raise a boy.
I tell my daughters all the time. My oldest is a sophomore now, and I used to tell her, "Hey, you better find something to do, and let me know what it's going to be."
She's a good softball player,
because
right,
if
or something like that?
she's okay, yeah.
Yeah. Okay.
She works hard at it.
Yeah. Good. That's all that matters.
I have to constantly be on her. As a parents, we always have to be on them, right? You try to instill same thing, good work ethic, good mental toughness. When we moved down here, she played softball up in Homewood, and we moved down here. Softball's huge down here. Had no clue.
Right.
Travel teams everywhere. Everybody plays travel, right?
Nice.
She got her heart broke a few times making no teams. I quit. Oh, no, you don't.
No, right.
No, you don't. We're getting to work, and we're going to keep putting work in. She worked, didn't make the team. We're going to keep working. All right, I don't care if she
See,
plays it after
right.
high school, but
Phil, you already won.
Yeah.
As long as you keep working. I'm a real estate broker. There are tons of people in the profession I do that are boneheads. I mean, they are horrible at their job. They still make a living doing that job. The real estate I've never seen. So I came from construction where you got to work. You got to move shit. You got to get shit done. You can physically see at the end of the day, did you get your shit? No, you didn't get your shit done, and that's bad. The real estate thing, I've never seen a profession in my life that a person can have absolutely no background in the housing industry, and they just like to tell people where the toilet's at, that's the bathroom, and the kitchen's got the sink in it. Like, they're knuckleheads, and they still make a living at it. Now, if they're hardworking, you can be a knucklehead and still make a living at it. So you're winning the battle by if the kid's just doing the work. Like I said, I'm not worried about my boys being financially successful. They'll be financially be successful at all the other facets in life, and then we're going to have something. Now, what I don't care for, and it's been like a pet peeve of mine for the last 10 years, I guess as soon as my kids weren't that age anymore, 7-year-old national champions.
Ugh.
Drive me absolutely nuts. You're flying your kid to Las Vegas to wrestle the Reno Worlds or whatever, and the kid's 7 years old, and then it's on Facebook. My kid, okay, that's that.
Let's not take the accolade away from the kid.
No,
Right?
but the parent. The parents wearing the accolade.
But
the kids
the fact of the matter is, if you want to be a national champion, you can find a national tournament every single day of the weekend. 52 weeks out of the year, if you want to.
right.
You could be a 52-time national champion one year, right?
Besides the fact that does not translate into success in high school. It does not. Because I know kids that are 7 years old wrestling in big tournaments. Like, we'll go to Iowa, and A6, that's a national tournament.
Yeah, that's a tough tournament.
Tough tournament.
Yeah.
There's my boys the last 2 times have wrestled in 105 kid brackets. Now, if you come out in the top 8 in 105 kid bracket, you're doing something right.
Sure.
So they're in high school. There's 105 kids in their weight class in high school there. But on that same weekend, the little tiny guys are all there too. Those little tiny guys have no clue.
Yeah, so you have that, a Tulsa when you're a kid. I think Tulsa is a legit tournament, right?
But they have the Triple Crown there. The
preseason
Tulsa,
nationals, postseason nationals,
the
Fargo.
kickoff. Yeah, the Fargo. Right. Right.
Those are some
Fargo.
Super 32s.
Right. Fargo's not that big of a deal when you're not in high school, but as soon as you're in high school, it's a real big deal. Because can't you be like 7th, 8th? You can still get to Fargo in 7th, 8th grade, right?
It depends on if you're a cadet or not. You have to be a cadet. It's cadets and junior,
Right.
For sure.
So,
with being holdbacks, you have a ton of those. So you might have a 7th grader.
That's something we haven't talked about.
Yeah.
We will. So I'm torn on that one. You know what I mean? Like the holdback thing. But I want to stay on the 7-year-old national champion thing. You see the little guys, some of them, like I've seen them around, coached them, know their parents. You talk to that kid, he's 7 years old. He has no idea that he's at some tournament that's supposed to be the biggest thing since sliced bread. The parent does. And when the kid wins that, the parent is using that on their
spewing
Facebook.
a bunch of venom at the kid at 7 years old that at the end of the day, when that kid's 10, he's going to go, fuck this, I ain't doing this no more.
Right.
This isn't even that important.
No, and I don't want to take the accolade away from the kid.
No,
the kids are terrific.
Yeah. So I had this thing on social media during our season, because now I'm back, right, coaching the IKWF, but I'm coaching intermediates, or what they used to call midgets, right, and bantams. So you have the bantam state tournament, midget state tournament, and all I said was, hey, it's not a state tournament. No. Let's not make this more than what it is.
I saw that post.
Is it a good tournament?
There was parents that were upset.
Is there a good tournament?
Yeah.
It is absolutely a good tournament. Do not take the accolades away from the kids if they win the tournament. Right? But it's not a state tournament. There is no qualifying events for it.
No.
Right?
Right.
So let's not make it more than it is. Because how many times have you seen a kid place 105-pound weight class at the Bantam State Tournament, right?
Yeah, right.
There are 5 kids in the bracket. The kid takes 30, wins 1 match, but loses 3.
Right.
Come on, really?
The word champion means you're the one guy on the very top of the 2. Midget state, they split the brackets.
Right.
So there's more than 32 kids there. They make two brackets out of it.
Sure.
And now there's two, 95-pound state champions at.
And I'm not. And don't get me wrong. I am not saying that these little dudes aren't tough.
No.
They're hammers.
But to constantly be putting that out there,
That this is the next big thing. This is the next big thing. You're ruining the sport for the kids. It's not the next big thing. It's not even important.
Because you know what comes before that. Those parents are making that kid cut weight. They're doing everything they're not supposed to be doing. There were parents this year with 7, 8 year olds like, what should he be eating? And I'm like, anything he wants.
Yeah.
Anything he wants. Just so my line with my boys is, you're not on a diet. You eat and you train. Old people and fat people diet and exercise. That's not what you do. You put fuel in the machine and go burn that fuel off. So, you can. There are guys that are top athletes that eat whatever they want to eat because they're burning it off. They're working that machine so hard that it doesn't matter. So
I think at a young age you just establish
a good diet.
And these are our eating habits as a family.
Right.
Yep. Are you going to have days where you order a pizza and you
we eat the shit out of ice
10
cream.
Cookies, right?
Summertime, we eat the shit out
Sure
of ice
you're
cream.
going to.
Do we get the gallon of ice cream? That thing is gone in no time. Like, I'm like, how'd you guys eat that gallon of ice cream already? And you got to have that. Like at times, you can't eat the gallon of ice cream during wrestling season. That's not going to work out for you. It's empty, shitty calories, all that sugar and everything else. But so it's a double-edged sword. If you're a 9-year-old and you've never cut weight, the first time you cut weight, you're going to have success.
Yeah, that's a good. I say it all the time. Is just because you cut. I told a parent this year, he's going to cut down to 52. I just want you to understand something. Just because he cuts down to 52, that doesn't change effort.
No, right.
The effort still has to be there to win.
Right, everything needs to be there. You need to have, that's the evolution of the sport too. When you're a little tiny guy, if you've got 3 or 4 little moves that you can do when you're 7 or 8, you can run right over guys, no problem. If you can do those moves.
That's awesome you say that, because there's just conversations I have all the time. Like I have Mark Ogle.
Yeah.
He helps me at Old Forest, helped me out with Saddle Up last year. It was the first time I really met him.
I like Mark and Joe because they fish and they wrestle.
Him and I work real well, and we constantly bouncing things off of each other, right? So when we started taking over our room, which they call the silver room, which basically is 10 and under.
Okay.
My son and 3 of his peers are all 6. They're in there together.
Yeah.
Should they be down? I was like, hey, I'm not coming down here an extra. He could stay up with us, bring a couple of the guys up. They'd work out. Hey, and they had great. They learned a lot, right? I feel like at the IKWF level, you have, and I just had this conversation with the guy who runs ours, you have a lot of dads. You need dads. You do need dads. Because here, a perfect example is me. I work on Sundays. So me going to tournaments on Sundays is like not going to happen until my schedule changes, and who knows when that's going to happen, right? So you have dads involved, and dads get involved at the top level, right? So instead of them learning how to drill, now people will look at me and go, well, how the hell are you going to teach 4, 5, and 6-year-olds how to drill? You'd be surprised what they will learn when you stick them in an environment and how much they adapt to, how much they will adapt to what you're trying to do.
Right.
Am I going to spend 1 hour teaching double legs
to
4, 5, and 6-year-olds? No, we spend 10 minutes a day doing it. Right. So what I'm trying to get at is, so then you have these dads that are involved, and they teach a double leg, and then they teach a half Nelson, and they might teach a sprawl, right? Then they start going to these tournaments. They're new to the sport. Right? And they have never really been around it. Then they get into doing a couple tournaments. And then they start light bulb going off. And they start being YouTube coaches.
Yeah. Oh, right.
Oh, we're going to teach this kid this because this is what wins at this level. That's not what's important.
No.
That's not what's important. Let's teach the kids how to drill.
Sure.
If you pay attention and you study wrestling, at the highest levels, they drill. They don't wrestle live.
Right.
Practice come in.
Well, I equate it to if you had a kid that was a musician, right, a kid that was playing the flute, or a kid that was playing the piano, you're going to, at the under 10 level, it's Mary Had a Little Lamb. That's what we're playing on the piano. You're not going to say, you know how I'm going to make this kid successful? Chopin.
Yeah.
We're going to work Chopin for this 10-year-old.
Sure.
Like, all you're going to do is make the kid nuts.
Yeah.
He's going to do the wrong thing. It's going to be all fouled up. So, he'll play the shit out of Mary Had a Little Lamb, and he'll go to the recital, and he'll do just fine. Everyone will clap, and everything will be fine. If he goes out there and plays Chopin...
There'll be that one kid that plays that Chopin.
Right.
And everyone will be like, holy cow, my kid has to do that. My kid could do that.
That is
stop.
like I said, that's the worst thing that happens to a parent is they see success, or the other one is you'll get beat by a kid that runs a move. They run that scarf.
You know what my favorite is, Bill?
What's that?
Fucking track wrestling.
Oh, track.
It is a great tool.
Yes, right.
For wrestling.
Yes.
It is the worst thing for parents and kids.
Right. My kid's ranked here. My kid's right. Yeah.
He beat this kid, and this kid beat him, but I lost him. It doesn't fucking matter.
No.
Stop.
Right. There's no college recruiter out there that has ever looked at what your kid did when he was 10.
No.
Never done it.
Never.
So if your whole goal, and I mean wrestling, so the general public, I started doing the podcast because the general public, I feel, is overall pretty stupid, pretty ignorant, pretty dumb, but people have things that they know a lot about. So I sit them down, let's talk about the thing you're passionate about, you know a lot about. And people are strangers, people from all walks of life. I've met people through jiu-jitsu and through wrestling that have watched too much UFC, and they seriously have their children in wrestling because their kid's going to be a kid.
Yeah, it's going to be some UFC fighter.
Yeah, and I'm like, whoa,
it'll be dead when your
whoa,
kid goes there.
Right. And I go, right. Besides that, like, I stepped into a boxing ring, and when you step into a boxing ring with someone that's been training to throw that hook, training to throw that uppercut, training to throw that jab, all for the last 3 months, he's been muscle memory in every shot, every punch hurts, and everything else, and he's got head movement, he's doing everything he's supposed to do. When you get hit by him, it sucks. It's not fun. I used to go to the gym to box and see the guys that were professional fighters and be like, there's something wrong with you because you're getting punched in the face for money. Now, if you have a child who is 7 or 8 years old and your goal in life is that he's going to get punched in the face for money, you've got this all backwards, man.
Yeah.
You can get far more money for school through academics than you could for wrestling anyway. Get a tutor. Get the kid into college and have a career.
You're not going to get much money for wrestling.
No. And that's not right. So, but if your goal is I've got the kid that's going to go D1 with,
good luck.
Yeah, right. Good luck, right, first off. But if that's the goal, and people should have goals, then you can't have it be that everything can't be worked out from, you're worrying about what they're doing win-wise when they're 10, because that's not, no one cares. No one cares. There are plenty of people that come out of nowhere in high school that you're like, where were you in the IK?
People who go D2, D3 who never even qualify for the state tournament and all of a sudden become All-Americans in college because that's when the light bulb clicks off.
Yep.
Every kid's different.
I firmly believe that my boys have been good wrestlers all along, but I think that they'll be better as just body type. They're 6 feet tall now, so like they're still growing into their body. The guys that are awesome in high school are the guys that are like 5'2" and like fire hydrants. They're grown men when they were 15, 17 years old. My guys they grew like 6 inches between sophomore and junior year. So it's not easy to keep up with that when that goes on. They were 106 and 113 as freshmen. We're hoping to be 160 and 170 as seniors. So quite a bit of weight. It's a different game.
Big time.
Right.
Yeah.
So yeah, the 7-year-old national championship thing, I don't know. People just need to put it in perspective. Don't put that much on your kid. The worst thing that I want to see, there's so much upside to the wrestling sport. The worst thing that I would want to see is you drag your kid to national tournaments. They never place at them, but you make them cut weight. You beat them up about it and everything else. Kid gets burnt out and it ends up being some screwball kid or grown up that everyone else has got to deal with later on.
Yeah.
So, those are the pitfalls. Honestly,
Let kids too. At 7 years old, 6, 7, 8 years old, like let's not put all this focus on, hey, we need to be wrestling year round, right?
No.
I was blessed to have my uncle Dan, and it was just, hey, it's October, it's wrestling season. Hey, it's July, it's football season.
Yeah.
And it just became routine as we grew up, right?
Sure.
My mom was probably more blessed because I was just that hyperactive kid. Hey, I'm going to play basketball at school, but you have wrestling too. I'll do both, you know?
Nice. Well, you know, we're, I think you're a good 5 or 7 years younger than me, maybe 4 years younger. I don't know. I'm 40. Okay, I'm 47, so 5 years. You know, when I was a kid, we did everything, even if it wasn't organized. We played the shit out of basketball.
When do
if
we
the
see
ponds
this anymore,
froze,
right?
Well, I don't
We don't
see
see
any
it
of
ever.
that. It's too easy to get the video game.
It
and
would
play.
pick up, there'd be 20 guys at a park for a baseball game.
If the pond was frozen, we were playing hockey.
Yeah.
You know, everyone got skates, and we're out there skating and playing hockey.
So again, that goes back to what we said earlier. It's the parents are changing. They're allowing kids to sit in front of TVs and play video games for endless amounts of time.
The iPad and the video games are the easiest route to leave me the fuck alone. Like,
Yeah.
just go be quiet, and then this occupies them. And I see a kid, I'm amazed at the amount of little children that are on YouTube looking. There's some little guy
How
that's
computer savvy a 3-year-old
but there's
is.
some little guy that's like 11, and I don't want to make this because this is the one little guy. He's like 11 or 12, and he's made millions of dollars reviewing toys on YouTube. That's his YouTube channel. He reviews toys. So, and he's got all kinds of subscribers, and and he's doing that sort of thing. But that's the one in 30 million
There's
kids.
a lot of those kids, though.
Yeah, that are on
Making
there.
a couple
But I see kids that are
$10,000
just
a year.
right. They're not making money, but most of the kids are just looking at the videos. That's how he's making the money. Is so many kids are looking at the videos. So I'd like for like this, I don't make any money. This isn't please subscribe to my channel, but it's not. I'm doing this for shits and giggles because I enjoy it, all that stuff. But so what else? 7-year-old national champs for me. Not fun. Now I do take my boys at 17. We'll be in Iowa this this coming fall for preseason. We'll be doing everything we can to make it to Fargo for sure.
Yeah, so as you get older, get to Fargo.
Yep, it's
Super
important
32s.
I find it important not because I think there's going to be this big college thing happening. I find it important because I talk to wrestlers that are your age that are like, it was the best time. We had so much fun being there.
And just
and
Fargo in general, the training, I tell kids all the time, my favorite experience of the whole thing was the training camp. Wrestling with the best kids in Illinois every single day.
Right.
Back when I went, we practiced 3 times a day. 3 practices a day, grinding with, I think it's 2. Two sessions, and then they have, I think, a running session. And, it's still high intensity,
Sure.
And
now, just for people that don't know, Fargo, you have to place top 3 at freestyle or Greco.
I think top 2 at freestyle or Greco state.
Okay.
Top 4 at a regional.
Okay. Right.
So-
And then there's the second chance.
And then a second chance, you have to win it.
Okay. Right.
Yeah.
But the second chance of the competition's obviously dropped off because the best guys already made it.
Most of the guys are already in, right?
Right.
Yeah.
Right. But
There's plenty of opportunity
Right.
out there. You have to be willing to travel.
Right. But you're not going to be there unless you
make
good.
that commitment to doing it.
Right. So you're really good. Last summer we couldn't even make that commitment. My guys were growing so much. I was not going to have them stay at a weight class or I couldn't do it. They were putting on weight. They jumped 3 weight classes last year, and you look at my guys. You know they're not doing steroids. It's just
I think a lot of parents will say, "Oh, financially, we can't afford to do that." Hey,
they do a fundraiser for that.
You
though,
sell
right?
all the raffle tickets; it offsets the cost.
Right.
It's already done. So now
It's like
you're only teaching the
$2,000
kids.
worth of stuff, right?
Hey, this is your thing. Sell the damn raffle tickets.
Right.
You want to go? You'll sell the raffle tickets.
Yeah, right. So they can handle that way. And then, I don't know if you're. So my job as a parent kind of changed when I got injured. I was working 80 hours a week, all that stuff. I don't think that I would have had the time to put my boys probably would have been terrific carpenters and fishermen because I would have time for that. But wrestling wise, if they would have had to take it all on their own, which I don't know any highly successful wrestlers that don't have major parental support. When I say parental support, I've said this before on the podcast, that's not sitting mat side screaming. That's opening your wallet, giving them money for tournaments, driving them to sitting there on Sunday. That's the support. It's silent support. If I could take the IKWF and put all the parents behind hockey glass and have the kids compete, how much better would that be? I could talk to that kid. He could learn something. Mm-hmm. Mom and dad would be behind the glass back there. Talk to him afterwards.
Yeah.
But you could separate that situation from the way it is now, where I literally have a dad on my shoulder hollering at his 6-year-old to do something that I'm not telling him to do. Mm-hmm. Please stop talking. The other thing I find with it, when I coached when my boys were in the club stuff, I avoided. 8th grade year was the only year I was in the same room as those guys. I tried, and my thoughts were, if I give my boys to you, they're going to listen to you better than they listen to me.
They're not going to listen to you anyway.
Right. So why not?
It's not you teaching them something. It's like, well, hey, why isn't your room clean? That's what they hear.
Right.
They don't hear the...
Besides the fact that, it's stressful in the relationship. If I'm going to tell you everything at home, what you're not doing, and I'm being a parent then, I don't need to be a guy hollering at you at wrestling. Now, when my boys step on the mat, they want me to coach them for that. Like, they'll come. I'm like, because I was like, hey, go with your coach, and they're like, well, you're not going to coach me, and I'm like, I will if you want me to, and I know them better than anyone else does. So when when you're coaching a wrestling match, you are coaching next to another coach. So I'm usually sitting next to who they're coached in the room with, and we talk about it. Where are we going? For a second period, what are we doing? Stuff like that. What's he running? We get a game plan for what we're doing, so it works out fine. But if my boys were the other way, where they were like, no, I'm going to have, Tommy or Jeff coach me, and I don't need you, I would have gladly.
Sure.
It's your thing, man. I'm not going to hold your hand when you get to be an adult, so I'm not going to hold your hand now. But for parents, the daddy coaching thing, stop doing it. It's not productive.
You see it all the time, especially the IKWF, and then the kids get to the high school level and they're not as successful, and then dad has all the excuses in the world on why he's not successful. No, it's just because he's only used to you, and you have to be used to being
What's the
reprimanded.
Yeah, what's the meme?
And
you want to have good employees, hire wrestlers because they're constant, they're coachable.
Sure.
So no, that stuff's good. I don't put much weight into the college stuff. When my boys wrestle in college, boy, that'll be really, really. I'll just be watching. I think that we'll still. They're not there yet. Obviously, they've got one more year of high school. I think we'll still have talks about it as far as how it's going.
Oh, you'll be getting phone calls.
Yeah, right.
Sure.
But I don't know. I think me not getting worked up about it makes it easier for them to succeed than.
Absolutely.
If I did.
Yeah.
So, that would be my
I'm learning
advice.
that now.
Right.
My son's, I'm the opposite role of you, right?
I think that you've got a good, I expect, to see great things from your boy because it seems like you've got the right mentality on it, and it's not easy. It is hard to watch. So I get parents that are like, we're football parents, we don't, and then they get their kid into wrestling in a couple years. They're like, oh yeah, no, this is way more emotional. It's way more intense. The football game's an hour long or whatever. What's youth football, 45 minutes or whatever they do?
I think it's 4 8-minute quarters. I think it's like 32 minutes,
yeah,
something like that.
Right.
Something like that.
A wrestling match when you're little.
Yeah.
3.5 minutes or 4 minutes. There's nothing to it, but it's all happening right now. Mm-hmm. So yeah, it's a much bigger deal. And now, where are you coaching coming up next year? Still Oak Forest.
Oak Forest, yeah.
I think
that's where I grew up wrestling.
Yeah.
So my son being involved there is pretty fun.
What's the cost and what's the website and all that stuff? How do people look for that?
Oak Forest Warriors. I don't know what their website is, to be honest.
Just Google Oak Forest Youth Wrestling.
It'll come up right away.
Right.
I want to say the fees, $250. That includes their tournaments. Like I said earlier, I
And
totally disagree with. That's a good fee. Don't get me wrong.
Yeah,
it's
it's
a
a
good
cheap fee. Yeah.
It is. It's a truly a Park District program. It is one of very few that are left. And right now, you have a lot of clubs. Right, everyone's charging $350, $400. They're selling the same deal. Hey,
Right.
you get a singlet, we'll pay for your tournaments. They're still making a ton of money off of it.
Right.
You know. That's one thing that does bug me about wrestling, and the more I see is, you know, people got their hand in the kitty trying to make money off of
Absolutely.
a sport that taught them better than
Right.
it to be about a dollar sign. And
Sure.
that bugs me. I'm not saying it's wrong. If that's what you choose to do, that's what you choose to do. That's your life, you know. I don't. I run a off-season club, right? Freestyle Greco.
Yeah, you
I charge
saddle up-
$75.
Well, let's talk about some of that too. But I want to cover the clubs because Saddle Up is $100.
$100 if you don't have a card.
Right.
$75 if you do have a card.
Right.
Which doesn't really make sense because a card's
Yeah.
$40.
Yeah, right.
So
what are you buying them the card then when it's $100?
Yeah, I buy the card. I have a dad that helps me out do all that stuff.
Yeah.
You get a T-shirt included in that. So we're bringing in 3 different clinicians. We're paying them $100 a piece. So there's some of the money that goes there. When we go to the freestyle state tournament or any of these regional tournaments out of town, I'll take that money, get the coaches hotel rooms so they don't have to pay. So it's nice and convenient for them. Never about making. I have a job, right?
So now the difference in wrestling to like say football or basketball. Now I understand that if your kid plays high school football or youth football, you play the football game during the football season, and then they have like 7-on-7s and stuff like that, or arena, which the rules are a little bit different. But you're still, or baseball is the same. Baseball is pretty much a baseball game, whether it's travel ball or regular ball. Do they play indoor baseball? Or is there indoor?
My daughter in the winter has indoor tournaments.
Right. Okay. So, but it's still the same game, right?
Same game.
Okay. So wrestling's not. Wrestling is not the same game, and it makes it for a coach and for the wrestler. I love it. I love summertime, man. To change gears totally, and for someone that doesn't know what they're looking at, wrestling in college in America is folk style. Wrestling internationally is freestyle, and then Greco.
Yeah.
So they may somehow, to someone that doesn't know what they're looking at, look the same or similar. They're not. Folk style is all about. It's really all about forcing control on a guy. I am going to control him to his back and force him to either be exposed and stay there or pinned. Freestyle is all I need to do is roll right through that and be the guy in control, and I'm exposing him and it's points. Freestyle is fast-paced. It is over right away. You are forced to think way faster in freestyle about what you're doing because you'll be tacked out with the 10 points right away. A pin it's a flash pin still in freestyle. So you get a guy's back on the mat, it's over. It's finished.
You go to your back in freestyle, you can pretty much bet you're going to get hit.
Those shoulder blades touch, it's finished. Greco is all above the waist attacks. So there are no leg attacks at all. So it's
no tripping.
No tripping, right?
Legs,
no using your legs in any way except for to stand on. It's a completely different mentality that you have to have for those things. So if you have an athlete who, like we were just talking about, wrestling never ends. We got done with the state tournament this year in high school, and I gave my boys 2 weeks off, which was a lot of time. 14 days of let's not even talk about it.
Right?
Do nothing. They went ice fishing. We were maybe in the gym a little bit lifting weights just because that's the lifestyle that we're living. But there was no wrestling on the mind. We didn't even talk about where you're going to go for summer. Nothing. Just do whatever you want. And then that 2 weeks was up, and then we were right back at it again. Now, some of you be like, oh, my God, the kid's going to get burnt out. It's a whole nother thing. My boys come back they're at Providence doing the program there only because it's closer. They're with you last year at Saddle Up. But they're at Providence, and they come back, and they're like, yeah, we learned this lace. They're excited to do the next thing. It's still that in their wheelhouse as far as what they're doing, but it's a totally different game. They're going to see, I'm amazed to see totally different wrestlers when we see them partly because Illinois has the 3 classes in high school, and then when you get to summer, you're all together.
Sure.
So it's just those kids. So it's a whole nother change of pace for them. If you got a softball player, it's just softball.
Yeah.
Hitting the ball, catching the ball,
Yeah.
the same thing constantly.
Monotonous.
Not in this. No,
Yeah.
right. And
Sure.
this is not the same at all. This is similar but different.
And the season's so short, right? The freestyle state tournament's here May 4th.
Right.
After that, I mean, you might be able to find a tournament here and there, but until Fargo in the middle of July,
Right.
really, there's really nothing,
Right.
right? So, if you qualify for Fargo and you're just training,
Yep. Right.
you're just training for it. There's not really any tournaments to
Right, and
get
the
you.
ones that we do find, we're searching them out. Like, I don't care if
Yeah.
we got to drive 3 hours, we'll go find a
Yeah.
tournament and go get. Because at that level, I feel, and you can tell me differently, mat time in actual matches is paramount. Like, that's where you're learning.
I think that's more. This is my personal opinion.
Go,
I think
yeah.
that's more in the youth level, right?
Okay.
But again, there's that fine line. How much do you need? How much don't you need? Right?
I just see a level of rust when
now-
my guys don't wrestle in a
It is, but now that goes back to what I was saying earlier. Knowing how to drill. Coach
Sure.
calls out and says, "Hey, we're teaching right now." For instance, all right, I'm on the kids in the room all the time. Hey, we're drilling sweep singles transition into a leg lace. No, okay, so I see a kid just nonchalantly let him do the move. No, we're going 80-80. There should be some resistance there. We should be drilling the same way we wrestle in wrestling matches.
Sure.
It should be at that intensity.
should be the difference between regular season baseball and playoff baseball.
Yeah.
There just should be that little 20%.
Yeah.
that the intensity kicks up. I get it. For me, like I said, I always feel like if they go a month without wrestling a match, that first match they look
Sure.
slow, awkward, fun.
Yeah.
But it comes back on right
It does,
away.
right.
So
It's like riding a bike.
Yeah, I don't like to stay away from it for too long. Actual competition, and then practice is obviously practice makes perfect. All the cliches you could think of that do. Beyond that, I don't think you got anything else that you want to go over as far as wrestling goes.
Just let the kids have fun at a young
Well,
age. Don't make it.
Let's go over the detrimental
anything.
things. The people that turned off by it. Now, the singlet is not a thing that much anymore anyway, because you can wear shorts. Is the IK doing shorts and t-shirts?
There's a couple of things. Okay, so let's just touch on a couple of things. Like the singlet, you're always going to have people. All right, so we mentioned holdbacks.
We didn't talk about that.
You mentioned. We didn't mention this, but 3 classes in IHSA. Singlets and short. Now you can wear shorts or fighting shorts and
dry fit shirts.
Dry fit shirts, right? So you're always going to have people that don't like it, and they have a problem with it.
Yeah, my sons
right?
don't care for the dry fit shirt and the shorts.
To me, a perfect argument for that. So you have 3 classes. Oh, they ruined the Illinois high school state tournament, right? All right, well,
'cause they
pull
put
up
the 3 classes?
this year's Division One. And I know I'm talking Division One.
Yeah.
But pull up this year's Division One national qualifiers and national placers, and how many more opportunities kids are having at the next level because of the 3-class system.
Sure.
Right? It don't matter if you win a state title in 1A, 2A, or 3A. Hey, you're a state champ, and you're from Illinois.
Yeah.
Those college coaches are going, I want that
Right,
kid.
that's what we haven't hit on too. I know that we're probably talking to mostly Illinois people because that's where my subscribers and stuff are from. We have some of the best wrestling in the country.
Yeah.
If you had your kid in football and you wanted to be in the best football programs, you're either in Pennsylvania or you're in Texas.
Sure.
That's where the best football is. Right here in the Midwest is where the best wrestling is. So if your kid is a state qualifier, state placer, or state champ in Illinois, that is huge because My guys run into state champs.
Don't let it get blinded, though. You're not getting a full ride scholarship through the sport of wrestling, right? You have an opportunity to go further your education.
But we have the best coaches. We have the roots are the deepest right here in the Midwest.
You have a lot of guys giving back to the sport. Like when I first got back into the IKWF, I'd see guys like Tommy and Jeff, right? And then I would look over in another corner and see another group of dudes that I wrestled with growing up. And then I'm like, holy cow, man, everyone's giving back to the sport. Such a beautiful thing. And that's what it's about. Sure. Everybody has different philosophies.
Right. But if you want to get your kid into something that is it's the real deal here in Illinois. I mean, we have on the cadet and junior level, we are constantly winning
even
national.
Schoolboy.
Yeah, even in folk style, didn't Montini just won the national? Not last year, but the year before, won the national high school.
They're constantly in that.
Right. So there's 50 states. And we're on top of it here in Illinois. So it's a great thing for them that way. And then but the drawbacks, the singlet, you can get around that with the drive.
I like it.
Yeah, I do
what's
too.
What's the stigma on wrestling, right? When I've been a high school coach. I coached high school for, let's say, a total of 9 years, right? And what's the stigma with wrestling? I'm walking around the hallways because I'm that guy. Yeah. I'm gonna show up to school. And, we don't have a 182-pounder and we don't have a heavyweight?
Yeah.
What about the football coach? The football coach doesn't support wrestling, really. And you have so much of that, right? He wants his football players doing something. You need to be weightlifting and getting bigger. They're getting fatter and slower. Right. That's neither here nor there. The stigma is fat guys in singlets and, their man boobs falling out the side of their singlets. So, hey, they did a great thing for these kids. Now you can wear shorts and T-shirts. You have nothing to worry about, right? There's no self-conscious, right? I totally approve, and I agree with it 100%.
More people stay in it than
I wish they would make the pants less baggy, fighters, like more spandex type, but it's a step in the right direction.
Right, so that's gone. So that's a negative that's gone. The dieting, it's less now. Yeah. There aren't guys running around in garbage bags like they used to be. It wasn't as bad as it is. You still need to be... it still needs to be a Spartan lifestyle. You still need to take everything off that you can't, you can't be a fat guy unless you're a heavyweight and make it. If you're kind of roly-poly at 145, you're in trouble. That's not going to work out for you. But the benefit is, you look great and you're living healthy and everything else. So that to me cancels out the whole, you want to worry about your kid not, eating right. It doesn't make any sense. You
shouldn't miss meals, man, right? Kids shouldn't miss meals.
Nope. No. My guys don't miss meals.
You should be eating the morning of, right?
Peyton was 160 when the season started, cut to 145, 15 pounds, and he doesn't miss meals. He just eats. That's fine. And the 15 pounds they lose, 5 of it is the training more that it just fell off him anyway. So he's 155. 5 of it is instead of taking things that got salt in them, he's drinking water more, which is good for you too.
You see it still right? IHSA puts in the hydration fat test, right, to try and the NCAA started it. Yeah. Now high schools are starting to adopt that program. So this is out to the trainers who think that this fixes weight loss or drastic weight loss. Well, you're a fool if you think that's the case, because you can see it first round or the night of the first day at the IHSA state tournament. Those kids struggling through their matches.
Sure. And then they're flat.
And kids lose, and they deserve. I don't want to say deserve, because that's not. The other kid doesn't even belong on the mat with them, but the kid's competing with them because now they're so sucked down, right? NCAA tournament, you've seen it so much this year. Sure. I was so shocked at seeing it, the weight cuts getting this. I wish they would monitor
the kids, for what their weight is, just their walking around weight, and then get rid. If they would, the matches would be more exciting. The retention in the sport would be better if they somehow could figure out a way to say, listen, man, you're walking around at 160. You're gonna be 152, but don't worry, because everybody that's walking around at 160 is gonna be 152. Mm-hmm. Then it's just I'm just training hard. I'm lean. I'm good, because the next weight class down, it's always tough. But you're constantly worried that you're gonna step on the mat with a guy that's 170, and he's going to kick your ass. So yeah, the dieting thing, if you can figure a way around that, please do, because I think kids will be enjoying the sport more if they didn't have to do that, because everyone loves the practices. They love all that stuff. It's the weight cutting that sucks. The cauliflower ears. I got one right now that I'm going to beat up my son because he wasn't wearing his headgear. You can be a college NCAA champion and not have cauliflower ears if you just wear your headgear.
Yeah.
I know guys that are, that were All-Americans, no cauliflower ear, Division I, because they were. I mean, Tommy Lee told me that he didn't have anything wrong with his ears until he started fighting, and then that's when he ended up with, the cauliflower ear situation because he wore his headgear. I make my guys wear their headgear. One of my sons decides to forget it all the time because, it's cooler, literally cooler because it's not as warm, and, it's cooler to have the turned out ear. And I go, dude, it's not. So you can, but if you're a parent that's the concern that your kid's going to look like Shrek, right? It's not a concern if you make the kid wear the headgear, right? Like that can be avoided without a problem until you're out of college, because then Jordan Burroughs
You
makes
you can't wear a headgear.
Well, no, it's up to your opponent.
Right, yeah.
Because Taylor stepped on the mat with his headgear on, and Burroughs told him, get rid of that.
Yeah.
Can't have it. Unfair advantage. But, so, that's avoidable. The benefits outweigh the negatives tenfold. I can't even, I know I've been like the biggest cheerleader for wrestling this afternoon.
There's
so much cheerleading.
a Neanderthal type stigma to it, right?
There is.
For so long.
Yeah.
I think you're seeing, if you really follow the sport, you're starting to see more higher education and smarter kids.
If I could get a kid to wrestle and play chess instead of checkers, he's going to be successful.
Sure.
The most powerful thing you take on the mat is your brain. So, I believe it's a thinking man's sport. The people that I see successful have so you have a strategy for your practice week, and then you have a strategy for each individual match you have, and then you have an overall strategy for the entire season. Then you have an overall strategy for all three periods together, how I'm going to work this. So, these are things that you bring onto the mat with your brain, and, I don't know. I can't stress more that it makes a person a better person.
So it goes back to the drilling thing. Just to touch on that, it is a thinking man's game, but the thinking should be done in practice. When you get out on the mat and that whistle blows, it should be let it all fly. Score as many points as you possibly can.
He said it should just flow like water.
Wrestling's changing, and it's exciting to me. I'm watching the NCAA tournament where 5 years ago I would sit there and fall asleep because every freaking match would be 3-2 or 2-1, right? And a guy would get a takedown and say, I'm going to get my escape, and I'm going to ride him out, and I'm going to win 4-3. Right? And that was the game plan.
Well,
right?
the danger rules helped with that, right?
Now you're getting scrambling more. Yep. You're starting to see it more. Right, at a really, really, really high level. Something I do with the kids level every single day. We spend tons and tons of time on scrambling.
I'll tell you what's all exciting is the funk. I love to see the funk.
And it's scoring.
Right.
These guys are scoring. I watched so many matches. There was like 30 points scored in one match.
Right.
Between the two guys. That's exciting. That's what people want to see.
Yeah, there are. Jason Nolf says his philosophy on it is he does not care about getting scored on. He's positive he will score more points by the end of the match.
Sure.
So that creates all kinds of action where, guys like Jason Surtis were dominant, but like
watching paint dry.
Yes, right. It was
painful.
3-2 was or 1-0 was the score. Now he won national titles, and he's a physical specimen and a very smart person.
Absolutely.
But not the most exciting thing for the sport. And I think they were talking about the Olympics, like the work in Greco, we were just wearing shorts.
Yeah, so Greco's still stagnant. There's a lot of work to be done there. But freestyle, ever since Greco, they were trying,
the throws are awesome.
They are, but you only have one Kamal Bay,
right?
That's the
thing. But if you watch a highlight video of Greco, it is
Yeah,
awesome.
sure.
I mean,
Yeah.
there are some acrobatic things going
Sure,
on that
yeah.
are just insane.
And that's where that gymnastics comes in.
Yes,
That's
right,
not
the
much.
body
So
awareness,
huge,
right,
so
know where
huge.
you're at.
But I think since they were taking wrestling out of the Olympics, FILA now stepped in and said, "Hey, we're changing rules." They've made freestyle a lot more exciting. They're forcing guys to wrestle and score points, right? And it's fun to watch. Just recently, the World Cup is on, man. I'm watching U.S. versus Japan. Super exciting wrestling.
Yeah.
Watch Russia versus Iran. Super exciting wrestling. Guys going out there taking chances, trying to score points, and that's what we need.
That's the thing about the that level of wrestling too. If you made me watch a girls' basketball game, I would want to kill myself by the time it was over with. There's no one in the stands. That's not I don't understand why they don't lower do something to make this sport better to watch. It's terrible. But watching females wrestle, as long as they're technically sound, because the playing field is level, they're wrestling another female. If you took the average height of a man, the average height of a woman, and you just lowered the net a foot or whatever it is that the difference is, then you'd be watching the same athletic contest. The women are shooting on a 10-foot hoop the same way the guys are. It's all just it's like watching basketball from the 1950s. It's all layups and 3-point shots. It's boring. But women's Olympic wrestling it's awesome. I mean I really enjoy it. Like
That doesn't fit the equality thing, though, Bill.
Yeah, right. What do you mean?
Why are you changing the game for us? Because we're females?
No, I'm saying you do. Well, I'm saying you need to tailor. If you have a game that is set to size, then you absolutely need to set the thing to size. Like you can't. If women are going to be, jumping and they're starting out a foot shorter, then you got to make the parameters of the game the same. Wrestling, the parameters of the game are the same, right? I'm wrestling another woman, same weight.
Same way, yeah.
So it's really all down to how well do I execute the sport, how well did I train to get here, my wind is good, all that stuff. So, I would encourage everybody to get, if your daughter did 4 years of wrestling when she was 5th, 6th, 7th, and 8th grade, and that was it, that's all she did, she'd still be able to kick some ass when she got to be an adult.
I encourage anybody that wants to put their kid in wrestling, get them in gymnastics. Do judo.
Sure.
Do some jujitsu.
Yeah, right.
Being comfortable. Jiu-jitsu is kind of non-beneficial to wrestling because you're on your back, but
here's the benefit
it
that I
does
got
teach
from
you
my
to
boys,
be able to roll around on the mat successfully.
My boys did 2 years of jiu-jitsu, and the biggest thing I got from it was, and you'll attest to this, I'm sure, little guys in wrestling, the minute that anyone touches their throat, they're and everything else.
Or they lose. He was choking me.
Right. But in jiu-jitsu, the kid's choking you. My boys did 2 summers of jiu-jitsu, and they never complained one time about their throat ever again because they weren't straight up a guy trying to rear naked choke them, which when they were getting rear naked choked in jiu-jitsu, you had a technique to get out of that situation. So now the panic button doesn't hit, and they get themselves out. So in a scramble, if a guy does hit their throat in a match, they don't care. They're getting out of that position.
Sure.
So that was the big benefit for jiu-jitsu. And we're going to go this summer, after freestyle and Greco season's over with, we're going to go do a month and maybe do a submission grappling competition with the boys just to expand your mind on.
And they'll probably win just because based on wrestling.
Wrestling, right.
Yeah.
Wrestling. Oh, yeah. I mean, people like Joe Rogan and stuff like that are the UFC commentator will tell you the biggest attribute you need to have in that sport.
Anyone who wants to argue that is just crazy. You can look at the UFC up and down, and the champs are all wrestling background.
All American wrestlers, right, for sure. But well, good, man. We did an hour and 52 minutes, an hour and 53 minutes. So that's pretty good for a sport that a lot of people take one glance at and then look away. I think we gave a lot of
We'll see how many
details.
views we get.
Yeah. Hopefully we get lots. And
They're
speaking of
talking
that,
wrestling.
right?
Yeah.
Well,
These guys are meatheads.
the point of the podcast is for you to. Well, we're meatheads. That's beside the point. The point of the podcast is for you to look at something, and that's what I did with stuff. Some stuff, the wrestling stuff, I've been around it for a very, very long time. I've been really, I've got books and, USA Wrestler magazine that is read in the house religiously. When I became a dad for wrestlers, I bought books that were straight up written by college All-Americans. I want to know what they know. But I had my last night was a trend. I knew nothing about that. Like, go ahead and he explained everything from being a 5-year-old identifying as a man to all the way to being an adult. So it was something that if you want to actually know something, people don't read books anymore, and that's part of the problem. I talk to people that are idiots constantly. Pick up something from someone. The person that wrote this book was a college All-American. He goes through what you should be doing in the weight room, what you should be doing, with your diet, how to transition from high school to college. These are things that I would not know anything about. So,
yeah, you got to be a student of the game.
Right.
I tell the kids that all the time.
Right. Mike Tyson, who you would think is a low IQ person, is a monster student of Jack Dempsey and like wrestlers or fighters from years gone by.
When we were kids to the kids now, right?
Yeah.
You have access to so much stuff.
Right.
Use it.
Oh, it's so much better.
Study.
Oh my God. I think that the kids from our generation were tougher kids just because we had tougher things to deal with.
You were outside at a park, and if you got in a disagreement, it ended up in a fist fight.
These kids today have some training that is, especially in Illinois, outstanding, like first class Olympians. Ben Askren is coaching a youth outfit in Wisconsin right there, and he's a freaking Olympic wrestler. Like, I mean, the top of the game. But at the end of my podcast now, I need to do a commercial every time, I guess, because I didn't realize YouTube was set up like this. But like, I need 1,000 subscribers. So subscribe to my. If you dug what we did, like the video, please subscribe to my channel, and there'll be more. I plan to sit down with wrestling coaches more often. I got a hunter fisherman guy coming on, this week. So, it's going to be stuff that I can inform people of, stuff that they don't know about. So hopefully people who have kids or have no background in wrestling at all, give it a view. Take a look at what went on. I thought we talked about some good stuff. Thanks for coming out, man. I appreciate it.
Thank you.
All right, cool.